a minute. Good morning. I'm Bob Sanborn. I'm President and CEO of Children at Risk. We're a statewide advocacy group. And today we're talking about childcare deserts across the state of Texas. And we've assembled a great group of experts to talk about this issue because childcare is so important for Texas and for Texans. So speaking today, Kim Kofron is with us. She's the Executive Director of the Early Childhood Education at Children at Risk, and she's out of Austin. Aaron DeLaO is with us. He's the Chief Early Childhood and Advocacy Officer at United Way of Greater Austin. And we'll also be speaking with Aaron in Spanish, para la prensa latino. Also with us is Erica Phillips. She's Executive Director of the National Association for Family Child Care. She is out of the national office, which is in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Erica, very much for being here. Dakota Finney is with us. She's the Executive Director of Little Rascals Learning Centers, and she's also a board member of Champions for Children, and she's representing Tyler and East Texas. Thank you very much, Dakota, for representing East Texas. Shari Anderson from Dallas is with us. She's the Vice President of the ChildCare Group, and she's the Vice President for Childcare Assistance up there. Thank you, Shari, for being here, and thank you for representing Dallas. And then from Houston, Santrice Jones-Hare. She's the Director of the Greater Houston Strong Start Alliance at Children at Risk. And thank you very much, Santrice, for being here. This is a great issue to talk about. And we've been doing these childcare desert maps since 2017. And it's a way to really understand where need is the greatest in the state of Texas. One of the notable things that we're seeing this year is that demand for childcare continues to surge all across our state. But what's very interesting is that this is particularly true for low-income families. So when we look at the state of Texas, what we see is that this is a fast-growing population, especially this early population. But young families are often low-income families, and so this sort of go hand in hand. Right now, when we look at these childcare deserts across the state of Texas, there are 938 specific zip codes that are classified as childcare deserts. And a desert is where demand is 3 times higher than supply for those childcare spots. And so additionally, when we look at those deserts, 884 of them are in low-income areas. And moreover, 63% of those low-income areas, those low-income childcare deserts, are considered chronic or long-standing. This is for 3 years, there's been a desert there. And so this becomes a real significant problem for us in the state of Texas. So even though the number of overall seats have really stayed relatively stable, the number of children who need childcare is growing much faster. And there's this widening gap between supply and demand across our state, which is important. You see this playing out in real time in places like Houston, where even as childcare seats increased, access actually declined for working families. In Dallas, availability is tight as demand continues to outpace supply. There is some good news in the big picture here, and that quality continues to get better. People are doing more and more to see higher quality within early education. So we're seeing significant increases in Texas Rising Star, which is the Texas way of measuring that quality. In some communities, providers have doubled or even tripled their participation in these high-quality care programs. In Austin, as an example, childcare capacity is growing, and the region has this very strong ratio of available care in the state. The problems still exist in terms of access. And in places like Brownsville, we're seeing dramatic increases in the Texas Rising Star participation, which really shows what's possible when investments really align with community needs. It's clear that quality is not the key problem here. What we have is really this access problem that continues to grow. So for too many Texas families, the childcare crisis isn't something that's brand new. It's something that we've had and it's been a reality for many years. But the improvements that we've seen this year are noteworthy. We celebrate them, but they're really not happening fast enough. And they're certainly not happening in the areas where families need them the most. Right now in the state of Texas, we have 31 million people. 5 million more are expected by 2036. Moreover, 10% of all of America's children live in the state of Texas. Texas is growing really fast. And when we see this young population, we have to also understand that we have one of the highest percentages of young families. So that means we're going to have kids, right? And when we look at this group, a large portion are low income, a large portion, majority are Latino children, and these groups overlap a lot. About 65% of children in the state of Texas would be classified as growing up in a low-income family. And 76% of low-income children are living in a child care desert. So it becomes a real problem. To paint the fullest picture of child care access in our state, we've introduced a new measure, which is the chronic child care desert, or sort of a long-standing child care desert. In the Gulf Coast region, more than half of child care deserts are now considered long-standing. In East Texas, entire communities have faced these shortages year after year. In Austin, every single subsidy child care desert is now classified as chronic or long-standing, which shows just how deeply entrenched this issue is, even in high-growth, high-quality regions like Austin. When shortages persist, year after year like this, families are forced into really impossible choices. They leave the workforce, they're forced to rely on unregulated care. It doesn't just impact families, but it impacts employers, which is really important. It impacts local economies. It impacts the future workforce of Texas. We've made real progress, especially in improving quality, but now we have to match that progress with meaningful resources in access and capacity. So we're going to have to work with policymakers, workforce boards, community leaders. It's going to take much bolder action if we're serious about closing this gap. The political situation in Texas is always interesting, right? It's one of the reasons we love living in Texas. But thankfully, this is not a blue or red issue. This is an issue that all of us are on board with together. We know that this is an issue that drives our economy. We really want the Texas legislature to see what's going on all over the state on this issue and continue to work on policy that pays attention to a very fast growing population of young Texans, the needs of parents, so that they can have affordable early education, and the needs for these young Texans to have access to high quality early education, because we know that this is a precursor to academic success. Many times we talk about education being the great equalizer. Well, if there's a silver bullet to low-income kids performing better in school, K through 12, it's high quality early education. So as we prepare for this work ahead, as we look to the data to guide us, we hope that these childcare desert maps are sort of a way that people can sort of look and say, hey, here's where improvement is needed. So we want to go a little deeper with this. Kim Kofron is with us. Kim, can you give us maybe from your perspective up there in Austin, can you give us a little bit of idea of what the data is showing?
Yeah, happy to. And thank you, Dr. Bob. Good morning, everyone.
Sure.
As we looked over the last year and analyzed the data, we have seen Texas childcare capacity kind of remain steady, relatively steady. And we also were very encouraged by the gains that we saw in quality as providers reached more Texas Rising Star standards. But at the same time, like you said, that demand continues to grow. As of September of 2025, Texas has nearly about 995,000 childcare seats, which is just a slight increase, about 3,000 seats over the previous year. But that modest growth is not keeping in pace with the demand, as the number of children of working parents increased by 20,000 during that same period. And to determine childcare availability, we look at childcare deserts in 4 ways. The overall deserts, looking at everybody, the subsidy deserts, which looks at our low-income families, our Texas Rising Star, which measures our quality, and now this new long-term look, what we are calling these chronic childcare deserts. And by analyzing these 4 lenses, we are better able to understand the scope of severity, of looking at the overall availability, quality, affordability, and then where those long-term communities really are in need. In fact, 64% of our childcare deserts in Texas are now considered chronic, meaning those communities have lacked significant childcare for 3 or more consecutive years. And like you said, Dr. Bob, about education in early childhood, the first 5 years of a child's life lay the foundation for everything that follows. During this time, 90% of the child brain develops as they are rapidly building cognitive, social, and emotional skills they'll need to succeed. But access to high quality learning isn't just important for the child's critical development, it's vital for the family's economic well being. When families go without access for a quality childcare for more than half of this critical time period, this is not just a temporary gap, it's a significant barrier. Living in childcare deserts for 3 out of these 5 years limits not only the child's learning abilities and opportunities, but also that family's economic stability. And across Texas, we see challenges appear in different ways, all similar effects on families and the larger community. We know there's 413 overall childcare desert zip codes, but for families who rely on that affordable, those low-income families, that situation is much more urgent. Like you said, there are 884 subsidy childcare deserts. That's 106 more than the previous year, and 938 of those are Texas Rising Star zip codes and deserts as well. There are 76% of our low-income children under the age of 6 with working parents live in a desert. That's 441,000 children. And 80% live in areas that have without access to Texas Rising Star or that quality initiative. And we are seeing progress. Last year, we had 46% of our providers participate in Texas Rising Star. This year, that's 74%. That's one in four providers are now Texas Rising Star. 3 out of 4 are now in Texas Rising Star, which is huge. But the challenges still exist. As quality improves, access is not expanding where families need it the most, especially in communities in rural areas and low-income neighborhoods, those where childcare options are really limited and non-existent. And we can't forget about our family childcare homes. Those providers are our backbone for care for infants and toddlers, and especially parents working non-traditional hours. While there's a slight increase from the previous year, we're still 22% lower than we were before the pandemic. Overall, the supply of childcare isn't where it needs to be, but it points to a larger systemic issue that needs to be addressed. Childcare providers are doing everything they can to stay open, to improve quality, to expand their capacity, but the systems they're operating in aren't enough to encourage that growth in the areas that we need it the most, where the demand is really pushing the market. For hundreds of Texas communities, this is not a new problem. It's a persistent one. For those families living in those 263 zip codes that are chronic childcare deserts, this is a problem they have navigated year after year. There is good news. We have an opportunity to act. With this Texas Sunset Review and the Governor's Task Force on Early Education and Care, policymakers and Texans have a chance to strengthen our early childhood and childcare systems by investing in providers, expanding access to families, and targeting resources in those chronic childcare deserts. Texas cannot sustain a strong economy if hundreds of thousands of children lack access of quality care and their parents can't fully participate in the workforce. Investing in affordable, high quality care and stable providers benefits not only just the children and their families, but our entire economy.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much, Kim. Very much. Let's go staying in Austin, and we're going to go to the United Way for Greater Austin. Aaron DeLaO is with us, and he's the chief early childhood officer over there at the United Way. We're going to start in English y después, Aaron, hablamos un poco en español también para la prensa latina. Take it away, Aaron.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. Really appreciate being here today and talking about the real gains in quality that we've seen in our Texas Rising Star participation from 44 to 70% here in the capital area. But at the same time, we've also seen, as we've talked about, an increase to 8 childcare deserts, and 6 of those 6 codes that we have remain chronic childcare deserts, which is a real problem. These chronic desert zip codes are telling us something important. They aren't experiencing short-term disruptions. They're facing persistent shortages for years. In Travis County, we're responding to this challenge through Raising Travis County, a voter-approved countywide investment in affordable, high-quality childcare and out-of-school time programming. United Way for Greater Austin aligns our work with Travis County, Workforce Solutions Capital Area, childcare providers, business leaders, community organizations, all through our coalition work, our grant making, our advocacy efforts, our data infrastructure, and all of the programmatic work that we provide. Through Raising Travis County, families are gaining access to childcare scholarships, especially for infants and toddlers, while providers receive gap funding to cover the true cost of care. That support improves workforce wages, stabilizes programs, and allows providers to expand capacity. This initiative will also invest in non-traditional hour care, after-school and summer programming, and quality and capacity improvements across the whole capital area. This isn't just about adding slots. It's about correcting a market failure that makes it nearly impossible for providers to survive while keeping high-quality care affordable. The data confirms that we're moving in the right direction, but it also reminds us that small increases in childcare deserts create very real hardships for families. Our goal in Travis County is not just to reduce deserts year over year, but to work with our state, with counties and cities to eliminate chronic childcare deserts altogether and increase access to high quality care. Raising Travis County, our initiative here, gives us a real scalable path to get there.
Very good. Aaron, ¿nos puede hablar un poco en español? ¿Qué está pasando en el estado de Texas sobre childcare? ¿Qué es la cosa importante que necesitamos saber?
Gracias por la pregunta. En Texas, el sistema de cuidado infantil no tiene suficientes espacios. El costo es alto para las familias y muchos proveedores apenas logran mantenerse abiertos. Aunque hay casi 995,000 espacios en el estado, simplemente no alcanzan para todas las familias que los necesitan. En muchas comunidades seguimos viendo childcare deserts o desiertos en cuidado infantil, que son lugares donde no hay suficientes opciones de cuidado. Y en muchos casos, estos no son problemas nuevos. Casi 2/3 de esos desiertos son crónicos, o sea, llevan años así. Para las familias de bajos ingresos, la situación es todavía más difícil. 76% de los niños pequeños con padres trabajadores viven en áreas donde no hay suficiente cuidado infantil. Texas no puede tener una economía fuerte si las familias no encuentran cuidado infantil seguro para sus hijos. Cuando no hay dónde dejarlos, los papás no pueden participar completamente en la fuerza laboral. Por eso, invertir en cuidado infantil accesible de buena calidad y en proveedores estables no es un lujo, es una necesidad para las familias, para los trabajadores y para el futuro económico de Texas.
Una cosa muy importante para nuestras familias latinos aquí en el estado de Texas. Sabemos que la mayoría de nuestras familias son latinos, muchos que no hablan inglés, pero esas mismas familias quieren trabajar también. So, muchas gracias, Aaron DeLaO.
Sí, gracias a ti.
Let's go to Erica. Erica, I don't know if you speak Spanish, but I'm not going to have you speak Spanish. So Erica Phillips is with us. She's the executive director of the National Association for Family Child Care. They're out of D.C., and they have great interest in this issue because Texas represents such a big part of their population. Erica, give us an idea of your take on all of this.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you to Children at Risk for shining a light on the reality of what many families and childcare providers are facing in Texas. So, my name is Erica Phillips, and I am the Executive Director for the National Association for Family Childcare. We're the largest national professional association focused on supporting high quality early care and education delivered in a home-based setting, also called family childcare. So I bring in the room with me today the tens of thousands of family childcare educators we partner with, many of whom are in Texas. and empower to ensure that they get the respect and resources they need to transform early learning experiences for the youngest children and to support families and communities. As we've heard, Texas is facing a persistent and growing gap between the demand of childcare and supply. And it's important to understand how family childcare fits in there and that they are a critical part of the solution. Family childcare homes, these are small businesses operated in an educator's home, is often the only option for families who are working non-traditional hours, living in rural areas, and seeking culturally responsive or linguistically responsive care. They are flexible, they're deeply rooted in their communities, and they are essential to what we call a mixed delivery system. And yet, the numbers of licensed family child care programs in Texas have declined and have not returned to pre-pandemic levels. The data shared today reflects a reality statewide, but we also saw this clearly in some reports and research we did in Harris County on family child care last year. And there we found that family child care educators are serving critical gaps in access, especially for infants and toddlers. They're operating their businesses on very thin margins, and they're facing increasing barriers to sustainability. But they do want to grow, they want to improve quality, and they want to serve more families. They just need the right supports to do that. So if we want to fix childcare deserts, including the chronic deserts that persist year after year, then we have to invest in family childcare as a part of the solution. That means stabilizing the workforce and addressing gaps in compensation, including benefits. That means expanding access to resources like business supports, coaching, and capital, strengthening family child care participation in the child care payment system to better accommodate working families, and ensuring that policies are fully inclusive for family child care and quality systems like Texas Rising Stars, funding streams, and infrastructure. When we invest in family child care, we're not just supporting the providers, we are expanding access for families, strengthening local economies, and creating more resilient early childhood systems. But the good news is we don't have to start from scratch. Today's press conference is really raising the awareness of what we need to do in order to ensure that Texas families have what they need to thrive. Thank you.
Very good, Erica. And thanks for drawing attention to the whole compensation model. You know, if we have better compensation, we would have more access because there'd be more centers. So it's sort of a key issue. So thank you very much, Erica. It's obviously it's an issue all over the country, but it's certainly an issue in our state. Let's go out to East Texas, one of our favorite parts of the world here in Texas. Dakota Finney is with us. She is a board member of Champions for Children, which is in Tyler, but she's executive director also of Little Rascals Learning Centers. And Dakota, give us your take from East Texas on all of this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to share our lens here in the rural area. So East Texas has one of the highest concentrations of childcare deserts in the state. It's been an ongoing issue for many years and continues to be. The challenge just increases year over year for us. At this point, we're suffering mostly from financial stability as wages and other operating costs increase. Many other industries offer a much higher starting wage with very little training and requirements on the employee's behalf. As you know, we want to put well-qualified teachers in our centers and our classrooms, so it costs to do that. There are benefits provided in other industries that are very hard to access often for childcare providers, while at the same time, we want to keep the cost affordable for families. Many families are sitting on wait lists either for space in a center or for subsidy care. You know, there's a wait list on both sides of that. Part of the lens and the caveat of the problem with the available seats in the deserts is we may have seats available, but the problem is even greater than it seems because there's not enough staffing to even serve the number of empty seats that we actually have. So for working families, they're not finding the care they need. Many of our communities, our neighboring communities, have centers that have closed There are whole towns in our areas that have either no center or a very small private center that doesn't accept subsidy. And that just really doesn't serve a working family. So many families are traveling 15 to 30 minutes away from their home or place of work just to find care for their children, if they can at all. And as Kim has said, as you mentioned, many often turn to unregulated care, which we know is sometimes okay as a family member, but it's just really not the best scenario. So it's really important that as the demand continues to increase, that we really move the needle forward in just providing the support that our providers need to keep increasing the availability for those families. We're very blessed here in East Texas that our workforce boards really work for us and support us. So our staff do receive quite a bit of training. We receive a lot of classroom resources, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't help to solve that staffing crisis. So that would be the biggest challenge I think that we're facing here right now.
Thank you, Dakota, very much, and certainly appreciate your insight on this and representing rural Texas, which makes up a significant portion, right, of our child population. So thank you very much. This problem is, as they say, a problem as big as Dallas, right? And so we're better to look at this than Dallas itself. And so we're going up there. Shari Anderson is with us. She is the vice president over at the ChildCare group, one of the great groups out in Dallas. Shari, give us your take on this, because certainly, I often tell people, Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston represent half of the child population, right? So obviously you guys have a lot going on there.
We have a whole lot going on, Dr. Bob. I mean, Dallas is in its transformation stage, right? I mean, they're revitalizing the older areas and that's usually where a lot of the low-income families live. And we're actually seeing that families are moving out into our suburban areas of Dallas County. And out there, we're running into, much like what Dakota had said, we're running into barriers with zoning, right? They don't zone for family day homes and all kinds of barriers that we really have to look into. And so, as Kim knows, I'm on just about every work group available trying to take deep dives in this. Currently serving on a population and workforce work group for our region, really trying to look at future growth as well, because we are seriously concerned that we're not going to have enough seats for the growth that we're seeing in Dallas County. And then how do we get there? How do we solve that pipeline problem of making sure that we're getting in enough teachers to do that? So a couple of things that we've tried to do here in this region is really focus on our Texas Rising Star and getting the quality programs where it needs to be. And we went from like 48%, 49% to like 78% this year. So we're really proud of that. But now we've got to sustain them, right? And we've really got to focus on these zip codes that are such a problem because they're such a need. And so Dallas County and the city of Dallas, they both established the 100% tax exemption for childcare providers if you're in these areas, in which, we're really spreading the word on that and making sure that they're taking advantage of this. So if they're in Dallas County, then they're qualified, they get 100% tax exemption for the county. And then if they're in the city, then they'll get 100% off the city tax too. So that's a significant savings right there. Just this week, we held a workshop with the city and the county and providers, and we had staff there lined up looking at all of the documentation, making sure it's ready to go. So we're really proud of the efforts, but we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, very good, Shari. Thanks for all the work that you and all your colleagues are doing up there, taking care of those kids up in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. Thank you so much. Let's finish up with Houston, and we have Santrice Jones-Hare, who's the director of the Greater Houston Strong Start Alliance at Children at Risk in Houston. Santrice, what's your take, and what does this mean for Houston families?
Yes, so thank you so much for having me and this entire group today. Such important insights and updates have been provided, along with what's happening across our great state at large. But let's really talk about Houston and what's happening here as well. So, as we've heard, there's been a lot of meaningful progress that has been made in improving childcare quality, particularly through increased participation in Texas Rising Star, right? So, in Houston, we've seen this as well, where we have seen an increase of classification of those participants from 47% up to 71% in the last year. That's amazing. But for many of our families that are here in Houston, access to that child care still remains a serious challenge and concern. So when we're looking at our local workforce board, which is the Gulf Coast Workforce Board here in Houston, we know that approximately 25 of the child care deserts this year are classified as being chronic. And we've talked about what chronic means. That means that year after year, families have not had access or lacked reliable child care options for multiple years. And then in terms of those, 10 are right here in Harris County. And that's significant. That's a third of those chronic childcare deserts within our region at large. So this is more than just thinking of it in terms of a statistic. It really means that our parents are forced to make those impossible decisions when it comes to work. Our children are missing critical opportunities to have that foundational development in the early years. And our region, honestly, is facing some long-term limits in terms of our economic mobility and our growth being seen at large. But one thing that I can say that these findings have made very clear is that we have to continue to fold in our communities as we're thinking about solutions for the future. And I can say Harris County and Houston is already forging the path for that. We've seen within the portfolio that Harris County is currently presenting a program called Early Learning Quality Network, where we are walking hand in hand with the community at large to build out plans of implementation that are going to be supportive to the needs of the community and making sure that exactly what they are in need of is being met at that time. So when I say that Houston has made strong strides, yes, we really have. But now it's really finding that this data is telling us quality, great, we're doing well there. But moving forward, we really need to focus in on access to high quality childcare across the area. So I'm very much so looking forward to this continued work and the visions that are possible for this work, because ultimately it's going to impact our workforce, our economy, but most importantly, we have to do what's best for children. So thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Santrice, very much. I want to thank all of you. And I think I speak for everyone. I say if the governor calls any one of us tomorrow and says, I'm on board, and we know he has been on board with early education, but if he says, I'm on board, what else can we do? I think my first thing would be to say that windfall of oil money that we're about to be getting because of oil prices going up, maybe put it all into the future of our state, which would be early childcare, right? Putting it into early education and really subsidizing all those families that really just want to be in the workforce, right? This is when you think about an average salary and how much it costs to have your kids taken care of in a great way while you work. This is the best place to invest that money. High quality early education is the way to go. We're going to have all that extra money, Governor. And so this maybe is the thing to think about doing. I think all of us would be in support of that. So I thank all of you for being here. I thank the media for being here and covering this. And we'll keep working. We're in a better place when we have people like you guys and all of our colleagues that are working on these issues. So thank you all very much. Thank you.